Hi, I'm Drew.
And I'm Sam.
And welcome to Drewling Samantics.
Drew, look, mate, I'm here, I'm home. Cheers to you, hello.
So you are, buddy. Cheers to you. Cheers. Welcome back. But hang on a minute. Shouldn't you still be on tour or something?
Well, you're technically not wrong, but I've had the weekend off, so I thought I'd spend it back here with my family, with my other half, and in this case, my bestest buddy, you. So we could spend some time reminiscing over all the amazing visitors who joined us on Drewling Samantics during season 6.
Mate, sounds like a cracking weekend to me. And I say, I've really been looking forward to this, actually.
Likewise, I mean, just think about the wealth of talent who were kind enough to give up their time and come and chat to us. I mean, we kicked things off with hilarious comedian and writer, Mr. Callum Donnelly, who is a rather good friend of mine and a rather entertaining bloke as well.
Yeah, absolutely true. And up next was the brilliant David Bain. Now, he has successfully combined two extremely different careers, but created some highly important and unique theatrical productions.
Yeah. And after that, we had a pair of Terrys. Mr. Burns and Mr. Gauci were enormous fun and gave us possibly our most wonderfully exhausting episode to date.
Yeah, that's a very good way of putting it, Sam. Very good. Hard act for anyone to follow. But I think Jonny Hansler managed it with aplomb, style, and a great collection of stories about his career in the theatre.
Yeah, he did indeed. After Jonny was the amazing Nicholas Benjamin, who's probably the hardest working man in the business, or perhaps I should say the hardest working mythical creature.
Ooh, cryptic but accurate. I like that. I like that a lot, Sam. Well done. But to round up this amazing and superb group of people, we had the lovely Phillip Lee. Now, king of Photoshop, Lego connoisseur, and all-round just generally nice bloke.
Yeah. And overall, I think we can safely say it was a lineup of the highest quality.
I think very much so. Very much so. I do agree. And to prove just how fantastic they all are, well, why don't we dive back in and remind ourselves of some of their highlights? Yeah. Ladies and gentlemen, please join us for our favourite guest moments of season 6.
And there he is. Welcome to the show, Mr. Dave Bain. Long time no see. How the devil are you, sir?
I'm very well. I'm just very stressed, but stressed but well.
Well, we'll come on to the stress levels in a minute. But first of all, please meet my podcasting partner in crime, Drew. Drew, this is Dave. Dave, this is Drew.
Good morning, Dave. Lovely to see you. Lovely to have you with us.
Good morning, Drew. Lovely to see you too.
Good stuff. Good stuff. Dave. And just you. Drewling Samantics, you can relax, chill. You're in very safe hands. Just have a lovely time with us, Dave, and we will try and gently de-stress you. Either that, or we'll just crank them up to levels unbeknown before.
Well, I was going to say, Drew, it's all very well telling him to relax and that we are Drewling Samantics, but he has worked with me before, so that's probably not helping.
That's probably why the poor man's stressed, though. He's going to have to face you.
Equally, photography is your passion to the point that you have a YouTube channel where you talk about photography, teach photography, and basically, and forgive me for saying this, you give yourself an excuse to buy new photography kit so you can, under the guise of, I'll put it on YouTube so it looks like I'm doing an unbox, but actually it's just to buy yourself presents. Am I somewhere near the mark with that?
You're literally 100% accurate. There is a certain kind, well, I don't know if you call it a disease or an obsession, but it's called GAS. And I think I've mentioned this before. You've heard about it. It stands for Gear Acquisition Syndrome. And photographers go through this where you just buy tons and tons of gear that you're like, ooh, I could use this. Oh, that might work with this. And someone else sells it to you. And by, a couple of months later, it's still sitting in your loft, untouched, still in the box. So, but most of the time I'm quite nifty at the moment. I've been planning what stuff I actually need and actually getting rid of some stuff that I don't use. So, but it does give you that excuse to kind of, make a video about it and talk about it. And sometimes you get lucky and a few companies get in touch with you and ask you to do sort of reviews of their gear. And that's what I've done with most of my channels, a lot of reviews on cheap gear or affordable gear, if you like, rather than the high-end stuff that the average person doesn't actually need or buy. So, and then on top of that, do a bit of teaching. So I started off on a phone and did a lot of photo editing on a phone rather than a computer, because most kids, when they're trying to get into photography, don't have the budgets that we have. So, that comes on later on in life. Like, you start small, you work way up, and it's teaching them how to shoot on a phone, how to edit on a phone. And yeah, basically that's it. Like, if there's anything on my channel that I kind of have an idea for or want to show or share or teach, sometimes people ask me and then I'll make a video on that.
So hello everyone, thanks for having me on again. So my name is Carla Donnelly. So I've got kind of 3 aspects of what I do as a job. I've kind of got the performer side of things, so I kind of specialize in comedy performance, obviously panto comic being one of those, and then also do a lot of community projects with drama through various theatres, going into schools, that kind of thing, and then also have a events company as well. So that's kind of the 3 aspects of what I do.
So you're a triple threat then, are you?
yeah, but absolutely not in the traditional sense of in any way, shape, or form.
So panto, let's say that's where you and Sam first worked. East Grinstead. Sorry, I should know. What was the panto again?
It was Jack and the Beanstalk.
Jack and the Beanstalk. Sorry, and I would imagine comedian in that was.
Yeah, so I was Billy. So essentially, I just do the same part every year with a different costume. So East Grinstead, I've been there. That was my 5th year there in a row. So yeah, 6th year this
Fantastic.
year, which is great. It's such a lovely theatre. I think I spoke about it briefly on the.
You did.
Time I was on, but it's called Chequermead Theatre, and it's a small theatre, but it feels like a big theatre. It's got 340 seats, but it's got a circle. And what I love about it is you can, as a comic, I can really see the whites of people's eyes. And, some these big shows, these big pantos, someone will say something in the audience and it will just be ignored. Whereas if someone says something in the audience, I'll be like, what?
Oh, yeah.
Say again. Yeah. So that's why I love it. It's great.
It's funny, isn't it? Because I mean, I've done panto last year. I was at Potter's Bar, and it's those lovely intimate theatres. I think it's like you say, someone will shout something out, and it takes a week to get to the stage. By which time the moment's gone. But like you say, you can. I was playing Dame, and you can be straight on those. I think the intimacy of smaller theatres really helps panto. I don't know about yourself, but even playing villain, you can get right in their faces as well. So, which of course, Sam knows far too much about playing villain. Miserable bugger.
He does it so well, though.
Does
training for it all his life.
All his life, and playing the part. What is it?
I feel I'm being ganged up on here, and I'm not entirely sure how that's happened so early. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to move straight on to another question.
Well, who is Jonny Hansler? Well, actually, strangely enough, Hansler is my middle name.
Oh, okay.
I'm actually John Britton, but there's a guy in Equity who is an absolutely sod all in any way, shape, or form that I can see, or has really basically pissed me off. Because I would have liked to be John Britton or Jack Britton, maybe. But I actually, in a way, I'm grateful because Hansler is such an interesting word. There's a few Brittons about. There ain't many Hanslers. And Hansler's got an oddness. It's slightly weird, which is my sort of thing is weird. So it makes an awful lot of sense. Hansler is Swiss in origin. And my great grandfather was the first person to be knighted by Queen Victoria.
Wow.
Absolutely true. And also he, in fact, there's a great story. He was so tall. He was a very tall chap, and she was tiny and very ill at the beginning of a reign. And she only had this battle axe that some other king had had before. She couldn't lift the sword to dub him, so you had to send him away and get another one made. And apparently that sword is the sword that was used today to knight all the peers of the realm. So so yeah, he was also apparently a spy for Wellington. He had a vintners on Charing Cross Road, which was a disguise for a spy operation. I mean, there's a whole film to be made out of that. But and so I can't quite beat that. I've got quite a long way to go. I've got to get knighted by Prince Charles and be the first one. That's going to be tough. How am I going to do that?
So started off fairly quickly getting comedy roles. My first professional role was Andrew Aguicheek in 12th Night. I then followed that on with Mason, who's like a Baldric clone in Journey's End. And that sort of really stayed with me for most of my career. People sort of go, well, you've got a silly face. I sort of, that's actually a comment that the casting director has said to me. You've got a silly, lovable, sort of village idiot face, which I put on my spotlight. You know, it's down there in description. Tall, dark-haired, stupid face. But I sort of embraced that and sort of went, okay, well, this is my bread and butter. Comedy is obviously my main sort of staple. But over the years, I've sort of been trying to break out of that. Ironically, most of my sort of bigger roles have been comedy. Like back in 2020, I won the White Deer International Film Festival Best Actor Award for a role in a horror comedy that I did. I've been nominated for a few other awards for comedy roles. But I also play psychopaths quite well, apparently. So that's the bulk of my other roles: psychopaths, sort of Joker-esque characters, and comedians, basically.
So there's a darker side behind that, you know, that wonderful, fresh comedy, silly little face. There's, excuse me, there's a darker side to Nicholas Benjamin then.
Yeah, I mean, it's fascinating me. We're going to my other stuff as a writer. It's something which I've found interesting parallels. Comedy and horror are sometimes closer than what people think. And it's like, you know, this is why the Joker is such a fascinating character, is that, you know, you have a psychopath here, but at the same time, he's cracking jokes. And there's sometimes where he is hilariously funny. So, yeah, it's interesting to see from a casting perspective how close those types are.
The reason I know each of you is because you have each been opposite me in shows playing the same character, and we're going to get this out of the way now because otherwise it's going to come up at some point. So I am currently sat here as the odd one out. I am the only person who has not played Del Boy in a tribute show. However, each of you has played him opposite I. So I don't know, do we want to do a little quick sound bite each, just to throw it out there? Drew,
don't be a plonker all your life, Samuel.
Yeah, hey? There we go. Burnsy with one lovely.
What's wrong with you?
Go on, Drew.
You know why he started that, don't you? Because you know Mr. Burns is looking for a new bloody agent, isn't he? Looking for a new agent. That's why he went first.
I've been collared, haven't I? I've been bloody collared.
I don't believe you two, eh? Come on, pack it in now. This time next year, we'll still be here.
And that is enough of that. We don't need to go back over that. We don't need to touch that again. We've got it out of the way.
You're huge with the photography, you know, you teach, yada, yada, yada. But you also got this wonderful, which I believe is on hold at the moment. I'm going to ask you why. You've got, you're Mr. Lego, aren't you? That's what I love, the YouTube Lego channel. I mean, I was brought up on Lego. I'm still good, you know, if I'm playing with nieces and nephews, get lost in it, you know, but I'm gone. I mean, tell us more, because I mean, it just does, it makes you smile, you know.
So basically in lockdown, like a lot of people, we kind of, you know, you start to wander around and you meet people. And funny enough, I've been living in, you know, a house here for about 3 years. And I didn't really, you know, you greet your neighbors, but you don't really know your neighbors, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
You know, you say hi and bye and how you doing, or you have the occasional parcel for them or something. And it's always been that kind of interaction. But in lockdown, my neighbor and I used to sit out on our step, and we would sort of, you know, it was nice and sunny, and that's where the sun would hit. So we would sit on our step and just sort of watch the cars or people go by or whatever. And he started talking and we started getting, you know, friendly. And but he basically said to me, you know, I really like, I've got like a huge collection of Lego. And I was like, oh, you into Lego as well? And I said, well, I play around with minifigs. That's my thing. I used to buy lots and lots of minifigs. And one thing led to another, and we managed to kind of say, he sent me this message one day after, reviewing some pieces of Lego, and he said, what if we start a YouTube channel or a live stream channel or something? And I thought, that's perfect. Let's do it. And I kid you not, within 30 minutes of that, we were sat in the pub writing out all the different sort of ideas that we could throw in. We could do little challenges. We could have like special Lego for different kind of sets and this kind of thing. And we started looking for a place to rent, and we found this nice little office space. Believe it or not, it's actually quite difficult to find like an actual space to rent, because they are, you think of a storage space. That's what we initially wanted. Yeah. But these are, they don't have power, they don't have lighting. So the next best thing is an office space. And before we knew it, we were shopping at IKEA and buying furniture. And then, we had chairs and tables, and we had shelves and everything. And it was this incredible ride where we went from, just every Thursday we would meet, and it was literally, we couldn't wait to get home and, jump in the car, and we pack the new sets we bought from the week, and we'll get there and we start unboxing. And we started to do a lot more of the YouTube side of things. But this also brought in a bit of a challenge, because you got to edit and have a video ready for the next week. And we both have full-time jobs. And so the editing was taking up so much time. We had 2 camera angles. So I had 2 cameras set up, and it was just, we're doing everything ourselves. And I'm the editor, if you like. So if you watch all of the videos on there, that's been edited by myself. Whereas Liam is very good at kind of knowing the backgrounds of the Lego and things. So we would have fun building it, and then we'd give our own little kind of review of it. And then we decided, what will be fun, where we can take out that aspect of editing and put it on Twitch and make it a live stream thing. And that's where we started to have a lot more fun. It took a lot of weight off us, and it allowed us real-time interaction with people. So people would jump in, and if we dropped a piece of Lego, they could quickly write #dropped, and that would, show a counter of how many times we've dropped Lego. Or, we would, if we built something wrong, we would have to start again. And we had a dice, and that would roll, and it would tell us how many steps we had to go back. So the manual, the Lego manual that you get, so we'd have to flip 5 pages back and then take all those pieces off and then start again. Wow. So it was infuriating, but hilarious at some, if you go have a look at some of the videos we've done. It's been a lot of fun to do that, and we are so excited to get back into it, but we just need to find sort of the right space for us, because we had to move out there. It was quite expensive. Sure. As you know, things go up, so we were sort of looking at we couldn't justify spending so much on Lego and then also spending so much on the rental price. So eventually we sort of moved everything back in, and in the corner of my loft, it's just packed with Lego. there's like 3 bags full. And these are big bags, by the way, sort of your Morrison's shopping type bags. Oh, wow.
You have kind of combined your careers and set out to do. And that's obviously how we met, performing, or in your case, directing, writing, producing a wonderful show called Game Over, which, I'm not even going to attempt to describe it, because obviously it's your baby, but I was involved in it in such a way that it became a massive passion project for me as well. But I find it difficult to describe it to people when they ask. So I'm going to put you on the spot, Dave, and say, can you do just that?
Thanks for that, Sam. Yes. I struggle describing all our shows. So Game Over is basically it's an immersive game show. And Sam, you played the sort of game show host.
Indeed, yeah.
Who happened to be deaf.
Yeah.
And the idea in Game Over is that we have 2 characters who have both committed suicide on the same night. And at the start of the show, they turn up in the afterlife, and they met you, and you tell them that, there's been a clerical issue. Only one of you is allowed to die tonight. The other one has to go back to their old life. Yes. And neither of them want to go back to their old life, because they committed suicide. They'd had enough. Yeah. So you forced them to decide who goes back by playing a sequence of game show rounds. So whoever wins the game show, and what winning means is, the interesting concept, gets to stay dead, effectively. Yeah. It's a musical, so there's songs in it. We have a judging panel. So there's a lot of different elements. There's lots of different game shows we riffed on. There's the X Factor element with the judges. And it's actually, when you tackle suicide in that way, it's actually quite a fun way to do it. So the first act, I think, Sam, you probably agree with it. Mostly it's just a really fun first act. The audience reactions we had were incredible. And then in the second act, it kind of gets into the characters a bit more. It uses these game show rounds to explore different parts of their life, what brought them to those decisions. And it is quite an unusual show, I think. But it worked very well. I mean, we only did 9 shows, and one person came to see it 3 times. I think that's really unusual,
This is the start of I'm going back to when I was 21 years old. I was at drama school, and we were doing Andrew Cleese and the Lion. And I had a Roman centurion's outfit. And I love this. And I think it was worn by somebody in The Greatest Story Ever Told, one of the Burns and Nathan thing. And you weren't not supposed to do this. I stuck it in a bin liner, and I took it back on the circle, Julian, or whatever it was, back to my place in Willesden Green. Strangely, I live in Dollis Hill now, not a million miles where I started, which is really weird how we come back to where we began. But yeah, anyway, so my friend was from Liverpool, and I just strolled down the stairs in this full Roman centurion's outfit. And he went, "Oh, like John." Nothing was out of the ordinary whatsoever. And anyway, I said, "I bet you won't go up to the pub in that." I said, "You're on." And I decided to walk straight up to this place, which is right at the top of Crickleby. There's a place called the Production Village, which is where they used to do a lot of big movies in those days. And a friend of mine had just been to see Billy Graham. So there was a double reason why I was dressed like this, because I wanted to do the John Cleese thing in Meaning of Life, in Life of Brian, where he goes up and he taps him on the shoulder. And I just walked up to my friend Chris, who's I did another podcast for recently, and I tapped him on the shoulder and I went, "Right, you'll fucking nick me, old." And he turned around and went, "Hello, John." As if nothing was out of the ordinary. Anyway, in those days, you used to get loads of people smoked joints in those days. I mean, in pubs, people were smoking joints. Nowadays, you'd get arrested or whatever. There's this kind of weird freedom in those days. And this place in the production village, there were 2 Irish friends of mine. And I think it was they used to call them 18 Skinners, and they were huge and like that big. And I was puffing this massive joint, dresses around a centurion. There was a punk band on stage. And I started pogoing around with a sword by my side and all this stuff. I stoned out of my tiny tree. Now, bear in mind, they'd never had comedy on that stage before. Never, right? This is a live punk band. What lunatic is going to dive onto a stage, grab a microphone and do? And what happened was I jumped on. So I thought, well, I can't. I'm dressed as a bloody Roman centurion, for God. I've got to make the most of this. So I jumped on stage, grabbed the microphone, and went, "Harvey! Leg of the 6, halt! Leg of the 6, leg of the 6." Excuse me, has anyone seen 3,000 Roman legions walking through here? And I did 45-minute stint on being a Roman centurion in a time war, going like, "What are you drinking? What was that? Meat?" or whatever, I can't remember what I did. I was stoned out of my tree. But at the end of it, I was 21, remember? It's when you've got all the good balls in the world and you don't know why you're doing stuff. But at the end of it, they passed around a pint pot full of 50p bits, and they just gave it to me at the end. And to this day, I wish Channel 4 had been there. I wish anyone had been there, because it was, I've done stand-up since. I was a finalist in Hackney and Pun Acts of the Year twice, but I don't have the balls I once did, mainly because they dropped much lower than they were.
We were drifting around that kind of area, and I thought, that is a very true,
amazing story, and
brilliant
absolute
stuff.
Truth.
Wow,
absolute truth.
Yeah, well, I was thinking about this. Obviously, there's plenty, but I thought the one I'd quickly tell you is the time I set up for a show. We've been booked for a show, and no one came. That was yeah, no one came.
No.
So it was a rural touring gig, and we turned up at this weird little village hall, and the chat was very odd, and it was down in the West Country, and we were like, "Have you had many bookings?" And he went, "No." Oh, okay. Do you think people will come? He's like, "You could have Daniel O'Donnell here and nobody would book." And I was like, okay. And so we spent 2 hours setting up our set, putting all the props out. And then we stood backstage, and it was at that point one of us went, "I don't think anyone's coming." And stood there, 5 minutes went past, 10 minutes went past. They set up the raffle. They drew the raffle. I won because I'm the only one who bought a ticket. Why'd they draw it? So I still left with something. And then, it got to sort of 10 past the hour, and we were just sort of stood awkwardly behind our set, and we were like, one of us has got to go and speak to him. We went out and we sort of said, "So do you think anyone's going to come?" And the guys went, "No." I went, "Okay, so should we just probably clear off then?" And he was like, "Yeah." So we just took down the set, put it in the van, and we left. And it's great because actually I've always said to the other guys now, like, if ever any of us gets big, we will always have that to bring us back down to earth. The time that we stood behind our set in West Buckland Village Hall and nobody wanted to see our show.
Oh, mate, brilliant.
Absolutely amazing. That's incredible. And what a way to end. I mean, so you've gone from no audience at all to the greatest audience there is, the Drewling Samantics audience, to tell your story. I mean,
exactly.
Yeah.
So if any of you are listening in West Buckland,
you missed out.
Please support that Village Hall in future.
Well, yeah, that as well. But
even if David O'Donnell is performing, please book.
Yeah.
Oh dear.
And buy a raffle ticket. Buy a raffle
Yeah,
ticket.
that as well. Buy a raffle ticket, because there's every chance there'll be no competition. Like
it was a particularly good Tesco's own Victoria sponge that I won as well. So
wow.
Well worth it.
So you drove all that way, set everything up, and you came away with something that you could have gone around the corner and bought for £3. I mean, it all makes sense.
There we go. The dream. That's
It's
the
not
life
the
we
winning.
need.
It's not the winning. It's the taking part. That's what
Exactly. Yeah.
And you were the only one that took part. So brilliant.
The other two didn't even buy tickets. Can you believe it? That's like you're guaranteed a win.
No.
But that's what happens when you're on the big money, Callum. You know, you have to make those big gestures.
Well,
you know what I mean?
You're quite right.
You gotta do it. You gotta take a lead, haven't you, mate? You know.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know about you, Sam, but I want some cake now.
I can't disagree, but for a moment I thought you were about to say that you wanted to listen to some Daniel O'Donnell. I mean, to be fair, Drew, he is kind of your era.
And there it is. It wouldn't be a Drewling Samantics episode without you mentioning my age, would it, eh?
No. I've got to stick with tradition, mate.
Yeah. And speaking of tradition, I'm going to continue another tradition by topping up my beer. And I suggest you do the same, buddy.
Yeah, not a bad idea. Right, done and done. How about you, Drew? You ready to get back to it?
Absolutely. I'm all fired up, mate.
Ah, that's a nice subtle segue, mate. Okie dokie, here we go.
Oh God, I love this story. Back in 2015, I was in a show called I'm going to mispronounce this. I couldn't even pronounce it when I was doing it. Jungly Jarguda, I think the name is. Which, to put it bluntly, it was a Pakistani panto, and it was a mixture of a British panto with Pakistani folklore, basically. And that year I played the understudy to the character which you would later play, and I also played a giant pink dragon called Fifi, who was sort of the pet to the main villain, the witch character. Anyway, fast forward a couple of years, they changed the cast around, but I got a phone call saying, "Do you want to come back and play Fifi? We've got some ideas for it." And I think the first time I actually met you was when they introduced Fifi to the rest of the cast. So there was you guys been rehearsing, I got called in, and Fifi's first entrance was dancing and singing to "I Will Survive."
Yep.
If I believe correctly.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
Yeah. And again, I must have had a like for it, or a like for you guys, because I came back again for a third time. It was a trilogy. It was a weird version of Lord of the Rings, but with dancing and random pop songs and giant rapping dragon.
Yeah, I mean, I did briefly mention something along those lines to Drew when we were doing our intro before you joined us. It was quite the experience, wasn't it? As you said, Jungly Jadagar turned into this 3-part extended story, and I think you nailed the description. I think it's probably how I've described it before: Pakistani panto, very sort of traditional Pakistani origin children's stories or tales, mixed with the kind of humor and style of British pantomime. So we had comics in myself and my counterpart, who played brothers who were basically useless, stupid idiots, almost like a version of the Chuckle Brothers, who incidentally saved the day on numerous occasions. You had the lead was a princess but she was sort of fighting and heroic princess rather than the traditional sort of rescue the princess. So all sorts of different elements. We had the evil queen and yes, her pet dragon Fifi. Just a very surreal but immensely rewarding experience. We got to perform in some, I mean, where we were
Olympia, Olympia
and then on to
South Bank.
South Bank in London. So amazing experience. But and that's just a small part of the acting world that you're immersed in. So not every day you get to play a pink dragon, although for you it was quite regularly for a couple of years.
It's a highlight. I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah, but
I'm not even joking. It was actually a really nice sort of break, just a chance to be ridiculously silly.
Yeah,
it was. I actually really enjoyed it, even though it was a great anecdote.
But basically, we had the stage set, and we had this door, and we had to do the hi ho. It's off to work we go, just keep on singing all day long, hi ho. But we had to walk around. We had this large kitchen table, and we had to walk around it, and sort of with our picks and our sacks, and we had to walk to the door, and then I had to open this door and walk through, and the whole team was behind me, so that all the other dwarfs would follow me in a march to this door. But the set designers have made this door really stiff. So every single night, I struggled to get this door open. And it was the hilarious thing, because the other kids who were playing the dwarfs as well would sort of bump into me. And I'm trying to shove this door open, and you can hear the audience laughing. And I am trying. And the final night of the show, I said, this is it. I'm going Leonidas on this door. And just like 300, I kicked that door down. And as set designer, we had made complaints and everything beforehand, but he said he actually made it extra hard for me on the last night as a joke. So I couldn't get through, and we would have to go through another way. He said, I didn't expect you to kick it off the hinges, mate. But yes, for about I think I was in 12-year-old at that time, so able to kick a door down was quite something.
An achievement to have on your CV. Where it would go on a CV, I'm not entirely sure. But
I know, but it's it's a fun little story, and I've got video footage of it somewhere on a VHS of me actually kicking that door down. So when I go home at some stage to Zimbabwe, I'll try and have a look at my dad's house to see if I can find that VHS, because it would be really good to kind of revisit that memory.
If anything is going to make your channel explode even more, it's if you upload a clip of that VHS onto your YouTube channel. The Crytown photography, where it all started, as the bossy dwarf kicking down a door on stage. But,
and kudos to you, Sam, because one of the things you were less enamored with the script was there were a lot of E words in the script.
Oh, God. See, do you know what? I thought I'd avoid it. So I don't know what it is about sort of mental health or sort of the brain, but all the scientific terminology begins with E. Like they must have just gone, do you know what? Every single word that we're going to use to describe some really important scientific element or theory, we're going to make it start with E. So I think I had about 8 or 9 different E words with at least 3 syllables each. And it's a miracle that I got through it, in all honesty.
Well, I'm so horrid that I so enjoyed watching you struggling with E-words. As I did rewrites, I put in more E-words.
Yes.
Just to enjoy you trying to say them.
You also sort of do a lot of teaching and workshops and that side of thing as well. So how did that kind of come about?
Yeah, so I guess you guys have talked about before, like muggle jobs and the idea of having a job that kind of keeps you going. And I was quite lucky in that the theatre near me, so the Marlow Theatre in Canterbury, was, we're looking for some people to be, I think they call us creative practitioners, to sort of run some workshops for kids. And I got into it that way. And it's sort of, over the last couple of years, it's kind of stopped being that muggle job and something I do to allow myself to do other things and become actually what I really enjoy doing. And I love it. And I think that's something I want to do moving forward, is a lot more of sort of directing youth shows and that kind of thing, because it's so rewarding. If you get the right group of, not even necessarily kids, like I've done adult stuff as well. And if you get the right group of a community, right cross-section of community, and, you get a good project, it's so rewarding. So it now feels like that's something I do alongside performing, whether it used to be, that's something I do to allow myself to perform.
And it leads nicely into talking about a huge project you've just been a part of, which was for the Royal Shakespeare Company.
Yeah, so Shakespeare Nation, it was incredible participatory project. So the RSC do a lot, because obviously they have so much money, and they have associate theatres, and the Marlow Theatre is an associate theatre. So their kind of plan was, they were doing Henry IV. No, they weren't. Henry VI. They're doing Henry VI Part 1 and 2. The idea was to get, there's like a scene in Part 2 which has a bunch of just local people in it, and it's usually cut. Like, they usually just don't do it when they perform the play. But the RSC were like, well, why don't we get a group of local people, like a group of 12, so a chorus from each of our associate theatres. There were 6 theatres, 12 local people to perform that scene, to come up to Stratford, perform that scene 4 or 5 times each. And it was a big job, like really huge organizational feat. Like, I was assigned from the Marlow side of things, so they assigned me as the director for this group of 12 people. But it was just incredible. Like, the group that we had were from such different sort of walks of life and different experiences of theatre. So, we had people from local charities, we had people with learning difficulties, we had people who had previously done professional acting but sort of lost confidence. We had people who'd never done acting before. We had one chap who was only doing it because he wanted to prove to his daughter that acting could be cool, because she wanted to give up. And the bond that they formed was just incredible, that we all formed. And then we went up to Stratford, up to the Royal Shakespeare Theatre, and just to watch the 12 of them perform this scene in front of 1,000 people on the Royal Shakespeare Theatre stage. It was just incredible. And we were lucky. So the other theatres did slightly more shows than us, but the Canterbury cohort were the ones that were filmed for the DVD. So that's there now forever. Like, that show is sort of in the annals of the RSC alongside, Ian McKellen shows and Benedict Cumberbatch shows. So it's fantastic.
That's great.
Well, the story that sort of connects me and Bernsey, just a few years ago, we did, he was captain and I was Dame Mary Berry Bakewell in that one, Bernsey, I think.
Dick Whittington, wasn't it?
And obviously I fancied the captain, blah, blah, blah. And we had to do a slosh scene together. Now, during the rehearsals, the slosh scene just wasn't working. We had to make this giant cake. And we were like short on laughs and it just weren't happening. And I was thinking, there's got to be a laugh out there somewhere. So after about 10 shows, I said to Bernsey, look, I've got an idea. This is in the wings, literally just before we went on to do the slosh scene. I went, look, I've got an idea. I said, I'm going to throw a line at you while we're in a certain position. I said, and you'll just know that that's the moment. I said, and I want you to say the first thing that comes to your head. So he looked at me and he went, yeah. And this goes back to what we were talking about earlier about trusting each other. He trusted me not to stitch him up out there with that particular thing. And I knew that he would have the right answer. No matter what he said, we'd get a laugh. Anyway, so we're in the middle of the slosh routine, and there's a position that we end up in where I'm leaning on the cake and the captain's holding my waist behind. So it's quite a compromising. I think it's page 67 of the Kama Sutra. I'm not sure. Is that the one where you still get your clothes on? But anyway, right? So we're in this position and I go, Captain, oh, Captain, remember that chocolate bar I gave you earlier? And I told you to put it in your pocket. What did you do with it? And I'm looking at the audience and he said, go on, Burnsy.
I ate it.
There you go. He said, I ate it. The audience laughed because I then reacted to whatever he was. I didn't know what he was going to say. He could have said, it's still in my pocket, which would have worked. He could have said, I ate it, which he did. And that worked because now it means something else is sticking in me, in my dress. And the audience absolutely howled. And we came off and Burnsy went to me, magic tell. That's absolute magic because now we've got our punchline to a sketch that was really struggling. And we're going, bloody hell, there's only so many times we can fall over and get guns on us. And then the laugh starts subsiding. We need a woofer. And that was the woofer. And after that, even the director went, brilliant. Love that. And we know, obviously, we didn't take it out.
Because sometimes directors don't take too kindly to you writing your own lines 3 seconds before you go on and do them. There may be people out there who recognize your voice or certain tones to your voice, but can't pinpoint why. And this is because you did some voice work for what can only be described as, and I'm going to upset potentially Star Wars fans and James Bond fans, but video games involved with the biggest franchise probably of all time, I would argue now. I mean, they're probably close, but when you look at this particular route and compare it to some of the big guns, it's got to be up there. So talk to us about voiceover for Harry Potter games, because it blew my mind. Like, this is incredible.
Oh, really? Yeah. Well, all right. It was. I mean, it basically Jason Isaacs couldn't, but he wasn't going to do it. Not the money I was getting. But he wasn't. He was nowhere down. So I did the voice of Lucius Malfoy. So if you ever watch Harry Potter and some of those bloody letters that fly about, and those things, the squeaking beasts, whatever they are. So I did a lot of that sort of stuff for him. It was done in a day or something, and I was just in one place. And I mean, I didn't think much of it. I suppose I should go on to these fan things and go, oh, I am the voice of whatever it was, and then make a fortune out of going to these places and getting loads of photographs. But I don't know, would people be interested in it? I don't even know. Some people say
I think it's just, obviously there are enormous franchises in things like Star Wars and
Harry Potter,
I think Harry Potter took off in such a way, and that it is so enormous now. To spawn things like video games and a play and the Wizarding World, and to be as global as it is. I think it's been translated into something like 210 different languages, or it's in 210 different countries, something absolutely insane. Like 97% of the globe or something knows who Harry Potter is. So, albeit you may consider it a small part, but you have played a part in what is probably the biggest phenomenon for 20, 30 years.
Yeah. Yes, again, another villain. A villain again.
Well, yeah.
So, what can you do?
As a photographer now, I obviously I do a lot. So I do a lot of different types of photography, and one of those is weddings. And
yes.
I guess I can tell this story. Obviously, I'll leave out the names, but I do a lot of filming of weddings, and I worked one of my very first film weddings that I got to do. I was very nervous, very, stressed out by it. And, it's a big thing to capture someone's wedding day. And I had done photos, so I understood how weddings worked, but I'd never done video at this point. And I was pulled onto this project by another videographer, and he said, "You can do it. You've got the stuff. You come around, and we'll film. I'll show you what to do and everything." And I got there, and I was sort of shown how this is the bride getting ready in the room and all this kind of thing. And I was told to get a shot of the wedding dress. Now, for most people, it's the photos, but we get a little video of it sort of being panned down. And the photographer next to me was trying to hang it up on a window. And already nervous. It's like, I don't really want to hold a wedding dress, but she asked if I could have a little knife to cut the tag off the dress. So I got my little, I had this tiny little credit card thing, and I was like, oh, try this. So she tried, she couldn't work it, and I tried it, and I cut it and started to hang up the dress for her, because I am 6 foot as well, so I'm quite tall, and she was quite short. So she's like, oh, if you just hang it up on the window. So I hung it up, but not realizing when I hung it up, I actually cut my finger. And because I was nervous, I had this big sort of red, the blood's pumping in me, and I had cut my finger. But I looked over the wedding dress, and you can imagine what's happened. Right on the sleeve is a big black, sort of like red, like dark dot on there of blood. And everyone is all on the other side of the room, rushing around, organizing the bridesmaids and stuff. And I'm just looking at the photographer. She hasn't noticed anything. Nobody's noticed anything. And I immediately start to panic. So I get the shot of the dress, and I leave the room, and I run downstairs to find the other videographer. And I tell him what's happened. I said, the wedding's over. This is it. Our career's in the jump. And it's literally panic session for me. And he's like, calm down. I'm sure it's okay. And he said, we're going to go and set up in the church. And they had this nice little chapel at this venue. So we walked around, and I set up the other camera to film in the church. And we were waiting for ages and ages. And my heart started to, we were already past the time when they were supposed to come and do the ceremony. And I'm thinking they must be over a sink trying to scrub it out. And immediately I start panicking. But lo and behold, they were waiting for the brother who had left his shoes in like another town away. So he had to go all the way back and get his shoes.
Wow.
And he told his sister about it and everything. And by the time I had seen the bride coming out, I couldn't see that red dot. It had obviously, on all the shots of the video footage, I couldn't see it. And so that was my sort of heart-pounding moment. And then therefore I do not carry a credit card knife, and do not ask me to cut anything.
A story with a moral. And I'm not sure we've had one of those before on Drewling Samantics, but
yeah,
amazing.
There you go.
Wow, what a baptism of fire into the world of videography for weddings for you.
Yeah. To this day, they don't know. So they've never phoned me up and complained. So it's all good.
Wow.
So it's I think it was 2018 when we did Game Over in the Brendan Roses Theatre, and we did a week. And my wife is in the cast of Game Over because she's an actress, and she's very funny. She was playing the judge of industry.
Yes.
But she came to me like half an hour before. I think you got to the interval, and everyone went backstage. Obviously, I don't get backstage because I'm just a writer and director. And she came out to me after 5 minutes and said, "What is going on backstage?" I said, "Well, what do you mean?" She says, "Everyone is talking about the aircon." And I said, "Well, what do you mean? What about the aircon?" And she said, "It's really, really hot on stage. The actors are too hot. They want to turn on the aircon, but they're all really scared of you." And I said, "What do you mean scared?" She says, "They're treating you like some sort of god, like, oh, are you sure we can turn this on? Will Dave be upset? Maybe Dave doesn't want the aircon on. Is this something we can really ask him?" And she was just thought it was hilarious because obviously we've been together for 20 years. So yes. So it was interesting to see behind the curtain. That's how those relationships manifest in terms of the way the actors think about the director. That was eye-opening and quite funny.
Wow.
Did you turn the aircon on, Dave?
I think they did turn the aircon on, yeah. I should have gone, no.
Playing roles of people who have committed suicide, not afraid of death. Then you've got Death himself, who's not afraid of anything. But none of us wanted to ask you if it was okay to have some aircon on. Yes. I mean, I'm not going to confirm or deny that story, but it might ring a bell or two. Really? Yeah. So there we go. So there's a lesson to any budding writers, producers, directors out there. Try and write from the heart. Write something that you feel is an important message. Make sure that you address things that, even if you're slightly afraid to do so, that you feel people need to hear this. But most importantly of all, let your actors have aircon. that sums up the industry in one, I think.
Absolutely.
Despite having these very individual, very successful careers in obviously the entertainment industry, but quite often in separate branches, for some reason you keep ending up stood next to each other as partners, be it in panto or summer shows or whatever. So what is it that just works for the two of you? Why have you got this such amazing sort of relationship on stage?
It's just pure chemistry. I think when Terry and I first worked together, he was Ebenezer, if I remember rightly, Burnsy, correct me if I'm wrong. I'm sure that was the first show we did.
Yeah.
I was Widow Twanky. And from day one, we hit it off backstage. We just sort of shared a laugh off stage. On stage, our characters just grew and the relationship grew on stage. The audience loved it every time we did a scene together. The producers then loved it, and it just snowballed from there. I mean, that's really the story in a nutshell. I think the thing is, whenever you're working with someone, chemistry is a very important thing. And Drew and yourself, Sam, you'll know this, especially when you got thrown together doing what we've all done, and you've not had a rehearsal with people. You think, my God, hopefully they get what I do, or they allow me to breathe on stage, especially in a show that allows you to ad lib. And of course, panto is very much like that. And when you're working the audience, you've got timing is the essence, isn't it? And Burnsy always allowed me straight away from the get-go. I came from a stand-up comedy background. He came from an acting background. I don't mind me saying that, Burnsy. I hope you don't mind me saying that. No. That's more our fortes. And he respected me as a comedy entertainer, and I respected him as an actor. And from that, we just sort of kind of helped each other out. Burnsy would ask my advice about certain things, and and likewise he'd also give me some pointers as well with the acting. So from that, the relationship grew, and the rest is history, as they say. It was a great combination on stage, Burnsy, wasn't it?
Yeah, I mean, like you say, first time I was playing Ebenezer, you're playing Widow Twanky, so I'm not even necessarily the comedy character. I'm the villain. Is my role, but we had these comedy scenes together, and it just worked. That we played up the comedy together, and I think we just had an instinct for how the other one worked. And like Tel says, I would let him do his thing, and I would know when to then come in and to bring us back onto the script. But at the same time, hopefully, complementing what he was doing with what I was doing, and it's sort of, he's taught me so much, about, comedy. What is it again?
I'm not saying it. I'm not doing it. No,
come on, Tel. Come on. I set you up for that one, and you didn't want to take.
No,
the
I
bait.
set you up.
Yeah, no, he's taught me so much about comedy timing and working an audience, because that's what he's done so much of throughout his career. And although I've done some of that in theatre plays and things that I've done over the years, and I've always loved comedy, and I feel like I've always had a bit of a flair for comedy in my performances. But yeah, working with Tel I've learned so much about that.
I think one of the best things, Burnsy, was when we had to look each other. I think it was only about the second or third show, and this is when we really hit it off. Burnsy had a scene where he looked me in the eyes, and he was going, "Now, Widow Twanky, if ever you need me, just rub the ring." And I went, "So, I've just got to rub your ring." From that, like, I was trying to make Burnsy laugh. It wasn't in the script for me to repeat, but the audience got it. Burnsy started like corpsing, and that was it. And then the audience like, hold on a minute, he wasn't supposed to say that, and Ebenezer's gone here. And there was a thing in the script, weren't there, where I was able to sort of mix you up. Every time he came on stage, I'd call him Abba Banana, Aberystwyth.
Never knew what you were going to get.
And I used to try and find different ones so that he'd never heard it before. And I'd
Abergavenny.
Yeah. Oh, Abergavenny, you're back. And he'd look at me and go, "You git. I can't believe you're doing this. Our Brof is here. Look, everyone." Whatever it was. And I just think the chemistry just built from there, didn't it, Tel?
I think so, mate. And I think actually funny enough, talking about the comedy dining shows that we've done, and that's the kind of, I did a lot of that before doing panto, so I did that interaction during those shows, and I think I was used to like things like that happening, and I knew that actually when it goes a little bit sort of wrong or off-piste, that's what the audience loved the most. And as long as you're able to hold that, you know, without completely falling apart, or actually sometimes even if you completely fall apart, as long as you can bring it back.
It's trust, isn't it? It's
trusting that you can play together on stage, yeah.
And what a lovely sentiment that is to finish with, mate.
Absolutely, Sam. Absolutely. The two Terrys, they certainly do have a wonderful working relationship. And I think it's lovely to hear how it grew from something small to be the huge success it is today.
Yeah. And speaking of huge success, I think it's fair to say that this season definitely has been one.
It was. It really was, Sam. So why don't we say another massive thank you to all our guests, Callum, Dave, Terry, Nick, Phil, Jonny. They were all brilliant.
Superb. Thank you, all of you. Really, really great. But the problem is, Drew, how do we now follow them all up?
I know exactly how.
Ooh.
How about we do another highlight show next week, but with the best of our own dear selves?
Oh, well, that sounds like a cracking plan, Drew. So, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for joining us for this best of show. Please do make sure you tune in again next week for more memories and highlights, this time with just him and me. Cheers, everyone. See you next time.
Cheers, everyone. Bye-bye.
Thank you for tuning in. We hope you've enjoyed this special highlights episode of Drewling Samantics.
If you have, then make sure you go and watch all our previous episodes in full for even more fun and interesting content. Please consider subscribing to our channel too, and you'll get notified every time a new video is released.
Don't forget we're also available as audio only. Just search Drewling Samantics in any good podcast app. And we'd love your support on social media as well. We're on Facebook, Instagram and Twitter, and all our links and handles are on the screen now.
We love welcoming new followers and subscribers, so please share with your family and friends, and we'll be eternally grateful. Stay safe, and we'll see you next time.